Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Tougies Take podcast. We are back. It is us, the guys, the fellas, with another edition of your hopefully favorite hockey podcast that's barely about hockey, a fraudcast, if you will. I am joined by Mr. Endo Mills and Mr. Sim for the win. I will always call you Endo Mills. I don't care if it's Endurance M. That is just the name that you had when we first became friends, and it's your fault. It's your fault.
Yeah, thanks, Grandma, for having the last name Mills. And, me taking off of that in homage to your name. And then saying, fuck you, Grandma. And then just going with Endurance M.
Yeah. Sin, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Good. So, today will be an interesting show, I'm sure. Because, obviously, last week, we typically do Mondays and Thursdays. We recorded on Friday for our second show last week. And then the NHL, as we had talked about last week, decided we don't really need to have too many games, do we? We talked about this, like I said. I do not know or understand what is going on with their scheduling, but it's going to make for some interesting shows where there are some times where we'll have less things to talk about. This weekend, for example, Friday night, 2 games. Saturday night, 15 games. Last night, on Sunday, 2 games. Tonight, 1 game. Monday the 24th, every single team in the league plays. There's 16 games. And then Wednesday, 1 game.
I understand only having one on Monday because of football and stuff, but only having one on Wednesday makes no sense.
So that's been a prevailing thought, right? The idea of, they're trying to avoid getting obliterated by the NFL. But at a certain point, you're eventually just doing harm to your own product by trying to 4D chess this and say, well, we can't go head-to-head with the NFL. The NFL runs on Sunday, Monday, and Thursday up until January when the playoffs start. Are we going to have a schedule like this all the way through January? And then what happens when the NBA starts? Baseball's still going on. There's a Game 7 tonight in the ALCS, and then we're going to be into the World Series by the end of the week, more than likely. I just don't feel like they're doing themselves much of a favor by saying, let's go out of our way to avoid competition when it's the start of the season. We're 2 weeks into it?
Yeah.
And you've had multiple nights now with just 1 or 2 games played. To me, that just screams massively detrimental. And even looking into next week, October 30th to November 5th, there are 3 nights with just 2 games. This is a continuing trend of, even through November, multiple nights with just a handful of games played. If I'm not mistaken, when is Thanksgiving this year? I imagine it is the 21st of November. It's the 23rd. The 21st has no games played. Is there a reason for that? Am I forgetting something? What is November 21st? Am I a terrible American?
Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
No, because the 23rd is Thanksgiving.
I believe
okay.
there's a roster freeze. I'm not sure if it's in November or it's in December, but there is a roster freeze at one point where it's basically kind of like you can't make any moves or acquisitions during this one period of time. I'm not, again, we'll get someone to correct us obviously in the chat.
Sorry to keep cutting you off, but 21st, no games. 22nd, 14 games. And then the 23rd is American Thanksgiving, no games. So please, someone inform me what's special about November 21st. Either I'm an ignorant American who's not thinking of it, or there's like a Canadian holiday. It's a Tuesday, so I can't even imagine it's like, it's a long weekend, bank holiday, because that would have been on a Monday. I just don't get it, and I feel like it is detrimental in a lot of ways to the league. But we talked a little bit more about that in depth last week, but it is still still a prevailing issue, I'd say, is the best
so
way to
about
phrase it.
that, I decided to look it up. So the 21st of November, apparently according to Days of the Year, because that's a thing, it is Entrepreneurs Day, World Television Day, National Red Mitten Day, or False Confession Day, National Stuffing Day, and there's a bunch of other stuff as well. But yeah, that's weird.
I too would not have a television product air on television day.
Oh, you took my. All right, fine.
I'm sorry. Well, I took Sin's line that he was going to, that he was going to dish out about National Television Day or whatever the hell. Well, the good thing is, Sin, we're coming up on the gift of giving, and there's no better gift to give in the upcoming closing months of 2023. How weird is that? We are almost in November already. The hell. There is no better gift to give this holiday season than the gift of well-groomed men. And you can accomplish that. I could get into with that. You can accomplish that goal by going to manscaped.com. That is MANSCAPED. I don't have to tell you how to spell it, but I'm going to anyway, where you can use the code Tougie, TOUGIE, for 20% off your order and free shipping. One of these days, I'm going to get them to bump it up to 24% off. I'm haggling right now. We'll get there. But again, manscaped.com, the proud sponsor of the Tougies Take podcast, the best you can get in the world of men's grooming. And again, start to think about it. We're closing in. November is coming up. National Television, Red Mitten Day coming up. Celebrate no hockey on Red Mitten Day by preparing yourself for the holiday season and get the gift of the Manscapes. Let's get to some viewer questions here. We will start off with Hawks, who is once again back to the Sister Christian Cage moniker on the Discord. Is it too early to panic for the Seattle Kraken? Now, Sin alluded towards this, I believe, on the last show, kind of mentioned, like, oh, it's been a rough start in Seattle. And obviously, we don't want to be too overreactionary in some ways. It has been a rough start. They have one win in 6 games with an overtime loss, so 3 points on the season. However, they just lost one of their better players. Forward Andre Burakovsky will be out for 6 to 8 weeks after surgery for an undisclosed upper body injury that he suffered in a game against the New York Rangers. Coincidentally, a hit by Jacob Trouba. It wasn't a particularly dirty hit, as I recall, just more so a bad outcome. But given the optimism surrounding the Seattle Kraken, we got to talk to Nick Olczyk about that and the feelings surrounding the club heading into the season. Definitely not the start that you would have wanted. However, I don't think they're the only team that's off to a particularly slow start. As it is, Sin, shout out to the San Jose Sharks, who are still the lone winless team in the NHL.
Yeah, baby.
The tank commander Logan Couture and company, they are doing a great job.
He hasn't even played yet.
Well, exactly. The less he's playing, the better for the team in terms of losing. But I don't know if it's necessarily too early for the Kraken to panic, but it hasn't been a particularly good start. And looking through some of the numbers here, Philip Grubauer has an .896 save percentage in 4 appearances so far, and team leading scorer with 5 points, Vince Dunn. You have McCann with 2 points, Beniers and Eberle each with 1. It's been a slow start for a lot of these guys, but 6 games is still probably a little bit too early to panic.
Maybe.
We're all in agreement.
I mean,
or is it too early?
They kind of won by commission in a lot of ways last season, so the fact that no one's really scoring, that's bad for them. Also, their goaltending is still a big issue. So, yeah, I don't know. You start getting to the 10, like they need to win a few in a row right now to really, I would say, to not have to go in the panic mode. But as of right now, like, yeah, they haven't looked good. Even the game they won, like, they nearly blew it multiple times.
I feel like, though, there are, and, you know, it's fair enough. There are quite a few teams, though, like I said, that you can kind of look at it like, oh, boy, they're off to a bit of a slow start. Buffalo Sabres, for example, Florida Panthers. But even within that division, obviously we talked about San Jose being at the bottom of it. The Ducks have just one win in 5 games, and a lot of people were looking for them to take that step up. The Edmonton Oilers have just one win in 5 games, and they got some brutal news over the weekend as Connor McDavid is going to be out for 1 to 2 weeks with an upper body injury. He got hurt during the third period of a game against the Jets that they lost, and he could also miss that Heritage Classic game that the Oilers are scheduled to play against Calgary, which would be a disaster for the marketability of that event to not have Connor McDavid available for the Oilers. I wonder about a team like that too, and when is that kind of ideal time to say, oh, let's panic here? It's weird because I feel like it's unfair because for Seattle, I'm like, oh, maybe not. But for the Oilers, I am willing to say they should panic right now. I don't know if that's right to do so.
Well, here's the thing. I think the Oilers, what's going to happen is they're gonna panic in the wrong way. I guess we can talk about them now and get back to the viewer questions. I don't know if you guys caught the interview by their head coach, Jay Woodcroft, who dropped an F-bomb.
Ooh, I missed that.
Yeah, he dropped an F-bomb in the interview. Very disappointed about the lack of effort and lack of a lot of people playing well enough. Another thing to bring up is that with McDavid out, Oilers are carrying minimum 18 skaters, 2 goaltenders. So they're paying for the horrific cap management and decision-making by Ken Holland, and likely the guy who's going to get the boot if they can't figure this out quickly is going to be Jay Woodcroft, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think he's a good coach. He was a member of the Sharks organization for quite some time, I think under McClellan, and now has a shot at the head coach of the Oilers. And again, when we talked about it, it's like, how far can McDavid and Draisaitl carry you? And once again, they don't have enough depth scoring. They don't have enough depth in general, as evidenced by their top guy going out, and they can't call anyone up because it'll put them over cap.
Cap Friendly has them listed with 7 defensemen. Their projected lineup right now. We'll talk about this guy a little bit more in depth in a second, but Evander Kane, Leon Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman as a top line. Draisaitl has. We'll go back to the top line. Matthias Janmark, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Warren Fogle is the second line right now.
That's not a second line.
That is not a second line.
That is a second line. If you're in a tank, let's go. Let's go. God.
Third line, no points between any of these 3 in the first 5 games of the season. Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and Connor Brown. And 2 forwards, Adam Ernie and Derek Ryan, who are also without points so far in the first 5 games of the season. On defense, they are carrying Ekholm and Bouchard, Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci. 2 points between the 2 of them, by the way. Nurse at 9.25 and Ceci at 3.25. A third pair of Brett Kulak and Vinny Desharnais, and then Philip Broberg as the 7th defenseman. With goaltender Stuart Skinner rocking an .814 save percentage and a .431 goals against average in 3 appearances. Jack Campbell has a .902 save percentage and a .367 goals against average in 3 appearances. This team right now, Draisaitl, Hyman, Nuge, McDavid, Bouchard. They've had 5 players really kind of show up at the start of the season. It's a really scary time. And kind of like Sin mentioned here in regards to, hey, Jay Woodcroft calling out the team. I agree that unfortunately he will probably be the one to go, which is the worst thing that could happen because the problem with this team lies in the way it was constructed. Ken Holland was a big part. Some say he wasn't. Some say he inherited the pieces that allowed him to be a big part of multiple Red Wings championships. But this roster's a mess, and I don't feel like it's unfair to call it a mess right now because The warning signs were there over the last couple of years that you needed a different twist. You haven't seen that. And now cracks are starting to form. What are they going to look like without Connor McDavid over the next 2 weeks? And tell me if you saw this coming. Evander Kane, during intermission of a game, was complaining about his lack of ice time. We've hit that time of year, everybody, where Evander Kane, who is averaging, let's see, out of all forwards on the Oilers, he is 5th in ice time, only behind Draisaitl, Hyman, Nuge, and McDavid.
He shouldn't be complaining, number one. But number two, this is the pattern of Evander Kane. He's a good boy for a couple years, and then he gets back on his bullshit. And I remember Oilers were like, "Nah, he's fine, he's great. Fuck yeah, everyone else." I'm like, "Oh man, yeah, we thought the same thing in San Jose. It's gonna start. Especially with the team looking pretty bad right now. Like it's gonna start. Something else is gonna pop up too." And then Oilers fans, especially Alberta, they're gonna turn on him quick.
I mean, like I thought the people would know that with his attitude with playing in, what was it? When the team moved from Atlanta Thrashers to Winnipeg, and he basically didn't want to play in Winnipeg. Then he went to Buffalo, and then he went to San Jose, and that whole shenanigan. And like Sin said, like it's a history. I have a feeling every player doesn't like losing, but I'm assuming just like when he's on a big rut of like a team or an environment where it's not like success 24/7, he just does not do well. He just does not like do anything well.
And the crazy thing is, like, there was an article on Sportsnet, if I'm not mistaken, around the time he was drafted, with the headline "Evander Kane problem child?" with a question mark. Like there, and essentially there were stories out there about, okay, is this guy going to get in his own way? Because at the same time, there were articles. I'm looking at one on Bleacher Report right now from a writer by the name of Warren Shaw, August 18th of 2009. Atlanta Thrashers first rounder Evander Kane could be a knockout in the NHL. And that is absolutely true. Because Evander Kane is a really, really talented fucking hockey player. But whether it is Winnipeg and Dustin Byfuglien throwing your tracksuit in the shower, whether it's Buffalo, whether it's the way that your time in San Jose came to an end, it's just one of those things where you can't help but wonder, like, is he just going to keep getting in his own way? And you're 5 games into a season, 5th best ice time on your team, and you're already complaining about a lack of ice time. That is not a very good sign at this stage, especially for a forward who is on the second year of a 4-year deal at just over $5 million per season, with a no movement clause this year and next. So it's not like you could be like, well, let's try to put him through waivers to get rid of him. Yeah, you can't do that. He has a no movement clause and then gets a 16-team no trade list in the last year of his deal.
16 team? Fuck.
So over half the league, because obviously 31 teams he could be traded to, over half of the teams in the league, he could say, I'm not going there. Interesting times in Edmonton. And it's super, super early. Like I said, 5 games played, but it's one of those things where it's like they need to kind of show what they're made of now already at this stage. You got to see what you have in those depth options and what they can do moving forward at this stage. And that Heritage Classic game comes up, I believe, October 29th, if I am not mistaken. So that is very, very soon. And hey, since we were talking about the Oilers, we'll get back to your questions in a second. We can talk about this too. From the Calgary Flames perspective, they might also not be at 100%. as defenseman Rasmus Anderson was suspended for 4 games after, let's be honest, headshotting Patrick Laine. Left his feet, elbowed him in the fucking head. However, he is appealing the suspension, really to the surprise of nobody, as he should, because 4 games was shockingly on point. You know, normally for something like this, he'd be like, 1 or 2 games, it feels like. And that's exactly why he's appealing, is it's like, well, you've set the precedent for this over the past couple of years. Why is my case different? He has a hearing with Gary Bettman today. At least as we're recording right now, there's no word out about what the result of that meeting has been. But yeah, the 2 Albertan teams in a really interesting spot. The Oilers, big couple of weeks ahead. And then for Calgary, they're also still in that really weird spot of like, okay, what the hell are we? But in regards to the suspension, I hope it holds for Anderson.
Yeah.
The argument will be, well, what about the standard you set? The message needs to be, well, this is the new standard. That's unacceptable.
Yes. They cannot back down on this, man. Like, this needs to be the new standard. Need to get that shit out of the game. That was completely unnecessary. I don't care if, there's 60 minutes in a game. Fucking hell, he's at center ice. What's he going to do from there? Like, it's not a hockey play. That's the point. That wasn't a hockey play, and it was a bad hit. Like, you can't get around that. Not a hockey play, bad hit. You can argue intent, but the result is that he jumped into the hit and he elbowed him. That screams intent to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like so many people just immediately jump to the defense, and it's like, oh, well, Rasmus Anderson's not a dirty player. He's a good guy. And it's like, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
It was still a bad play, though.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, you still have to hold people accountable for like, man, that was a shit play. Take a seat for a little bit. Don't do that shit again. It's not as if it's a Rafi Torres 41-game suspension. It's 4 games, which will likely be costly for the Flames, and that's kind of the point. Oh no, it's the consequences of my actions. How terrible. So, funny enough, do you guys want to go back to viewer questions really quickly or stay in the Pacific?
Yeah, sure.
Because we did have some conversations surrounding the Pacific Division, and we can always come back to them. Or
we already hit the 2 teams that we were talking about, so we can go back to viewer questions.
Fair enough. With that, our next question from Young Burrito. Okay. If you had to be one villain, who would you be? Also, pizza is amazing with ranch.
Okay.
From Sin.
Yes.
So yeah, if no further context, just if you had to be a villain, who would you be?
I want to be that guy from that Spider-Man comic where he could splice genes and redevelop genetic code. And Spider-Man's like, you could cure cancer with this. Like, I don't want to cure cancer. I want to make people into dinosaurs. That's the kind of guy that I want to be. Oh, I'll find the article and I'll show you guys the clip. Yeah.
Oh, God. I love that somehow popped into your head within 15 seconds of me asking.
I think about that a lot. You don't understand.
That's your Rome.
That's my Rome and Empire.
Oh, God. Sin, do you have an answer for this?
Not really. Not right now. I have to, I guess, think about it. What villain do I want to be?
These are the type of questions where a little bit more context to put us in brackets a little bit instead of the expansive world. Like, what the hell for villain? I do have an answer though.
Here it is.
I want to be Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin. I want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger just saying ice puns all day.
Ice.
Goddamn job.
What killed the dinosaurs?
The
Ice Age.
Chill out.
Ice to meet you.
How big of an ego did he have to make his name appear first before the guy who plays Batman in the opening credits, by the way?
Right? I mean, dude, that's a power move and a half. Come on.
Yeah.
God
damn it. It's funny. I was asked about it on stream last night. Like, it was some sort of context of like, oh, what would you do if you could go back and what stupid thing would you do if you could go back in time or something like that? It's like I would watch Batman Forever and Batman and Robin in theaters. And I would be quoting the movie for first time viewers as they watch it, so they just have to look at me.
God, the Bat credit card that gets me every time.
Those movies they're so shit, and I love them. I will always love the Joel Schumacher Batman movies because they are an absolute disaster in the best possible way.
Riddle me this, Batman.
Dude, Jim Carrey as the Riddler and Forever is amazing. But I'm just thinking of all the Arnold quotes at this point. You know, it was an Edgy's 90 movie, so he said, "Let's kick some ice" instead of ass.
Yeah.
You know, it was great. God, I love those movies. Sin, did I bide you enough time?
Not really. I don't fucking know, man.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Throw him under the bus for a mid question. This one comes from AJ, and this is more in Sin's wheelhouse. Rank from best to worst. So what I will do is we'll do like King of the Hill style. I'll name 2. Whatever one's better moves on to the next challenger. Chicken wing or boneless bites chicken?
Fucking chicken wing.
Ooh.
Endo, do you agree?
Chicken wing, yeah. Fuck yeah.
Chicken wing or chicken tender?
Chicken wing.
Chicken wing.
Chicken wing or popcorn chicken?
Chicken wing.
Chicken wing.
Chicken wing or chicken nuggets?
Chicken wing.
Chicken wing.
Chicken wing or chicken fries?
Chicken wing.
Chicken wing, dude. Chicken fries are just like Weight Watchers
Skinny
chicken
nuggets.
strips. Like, what the fuck?
Skinny nuggets. Oh God, they're the Luigi of chicken nuggets, chicken fries. That is compared to Mario's chicken nugget. You know, he's a little bit more.
Oh man, remember the year of Luigi?
I do. I don't care what anybody says. Okay, like Luigi's Mansion, good games. God damn it, put some respect on Luigi. At this point.
You know what's really funny about the year of Luigi? It was like the worst financially reported Nintendo's ever done.
It was terrible.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
So for anybody who doesn't know, literally there's a Wikipedia article on this. The year of Luigi, which was February of 2013 to March of 2014, so 1 year, 1 month, and 4 days actually, was the 30th anniversary celebration of Luigi. So they basically, dedicated an entire year to Luigi-based games, which included new Super Luigi U, which was Luigi, like Mario-style game for the Wii U, Dr. Luigi. They did stuff for Super Mario 3D World. It just flopped horrifically.
It was bad because there was nothing new. It was just the same games, except instead of being able to play with Mario and Luigi, it was just Luigi. Oops, all Luigi. That's basically what it was.
There's something for player 2s everywhere.
Yeah. So here's the quote.
Fine.
The legacy part of the Year of Luigi article. 2013 was an apparent financial failure for Nintendo, losing $457 million in total, primarily due to the poor reception of the Wii U and its games.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Shout out
Luigi
to
U.
God. The Wii U. Did either of you own a Wii U?
No, I haven't
not.
owned a Nintendo system since the 64.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I had friends that like had the GameCube and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't need to buy one. It's like I was the guy that had the PS2. My friend was the one that had the GameCube. Cool. We get to play everything that we want to play.
Yep.
And now we have one console for almost everything. Unless you like Spider-Man and stuff like that. Get a big ass PS5.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. I want to play that so bad, but I do not have time before this wedding. I just don't. From Tomas Shea, my kids just started playing hockey/skating, and I don't want them to fall into any of the hockey rivalries in Canada, like Boston, Montreal, Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto versus everyone. What team jersey could I get them to keep them safe? So the way I think of this question, what team is like the most milquetoast? What team is everyone just like, yeah, they exist? And that's it. That no one has like particularly
Winnipeg.
harsh feelings about. Winnipeg.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
exist.
Honestly,
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Winnipeg, and then get them the alternate jersey they had a few years
Powder
ago.
blue. Yeah, the baby blue.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it looks like it was from fucking Walmart. It's perfect. It's perfect. Just cursive jets in the middle. Perfect. You'll be fine.
As I'm scrolling through these teams, I'm like, yeah, what other team aside from the Jets? Like, I guess you could have said the Panthers before this cup run, but not anymore. Like,
I
especially
thought it had to be a Canadian team because he was.
Oh,
in
does it
Canada.
have to be a Canadian team?
Oh, I don't know. He just said in
It didn't
Canada.
necessarily say a Canadian team. It said any
No.
team, but I do think Winnipeg is probably the best one. Like,
Yeah.
do people hate Columbus Blue Jackets fans at this point?
No.
Maybe the
No.
organization? Like, who views Columbus as a rivalry at this
No
stage,
one.
right? Like, Tampa got over it because they went on to win 2 cups after the embarrassment of the first round a few years ago. Yeah, Winnipeg might just be the most type of team out there. Congrats to Jets fans. And there you go, Tomas. You now have your kids are now Winnipeg Jets fans until they move back to Atlanta. Oh, God, but hey, then you'll root for the Atlanta Thrashers, which is cool. And your kids will have been on the bandwagon from literally day one with the return of the Thrashers. There you go. From Scroopy Noopers, question for the podcast. Based on my obsession with sharks, should the San Jose Sharks have alternate jerseys or warm-up jerseys of different species of sharks? Imagine emblem and color changes to match a blue, mako, hammerhead, whale shark, or even a great white. Sid, I feel like this is for you. Would you want the sharks to be more kind of gimmicky with it, for lack of a better term?
Nah.
Nah.
I mean, different species and shit. You don't need that unless you want to slap the street sharks on there. I'd be all for that.
We need oh my god, dude, we need an NHL game where it's the San Jose in Street Sharks jerseys. Like it's the Ducks in the Mighty Ducks cartoon jerseys.
Oh my god.
Amazing. And for anybody who does not know, Street Sharks
was a really horrible
animated
Ninja Turtles knockoff.
Yes, in the mid 90s. It was a
With Vin Diesel, right?
blatant knockoff of the Ninja Turtles.
But they ate hamburgers.
All right, here we go. I'm going to read the plot for Street Sharks. A university professor named Dr. Robert Bolton and his partner, Dr. Luther Paradigm.
What a name. What a fucking name. Paradigm.
That might have to be the episode title, just Dr. Luther Paradigm. Create a machine known as the Gene Slammer, which coincidentally I was called in high school. We might have to call this episode Gene Slammer.
Yes,
Oh
please.
my god.
Oh my god.
Which is capable of changing aquatic animals into anthropomorphic hybrids by combining their DNA.
Oh my
In
god.
his attempt to prevent Paradigm from using this machine for personal power, Bolton is transformed into an unseen monstrosity, but he does escape. Later, Paradigm gives Bolton's 4 sons, John, Bobby, Coop, and Clint, the likeness.
Coop and Clint.
Coop and Clint.
Jesus.
The likeness of 4 different sharks. When Paradigm captures their friend Benz, the resulting street sharks rescue him, and the resulting battle causes Paradigm to be combined with piranha DNA, for which he is often nicknamed Dr. Paranoid by the other characters. While street sharks are known to enjoy eating hot dogs, hamburgers, and shakes, they have shown a disdain for pizza when they shoot down that suggestion to Benz and other character Lena Mack, who sounds like a porn star.
Oh, man.
Oh, God. In subsequent episodes, Dr. Paradigm creates a variety of mutant animals to destroy the street sharks while attempting to persuade the inhabitants of their native metropolis, Fishin City.
One of them was like an orca, I think.
Like nuclear fission, by the way, to imprison them. Of these mutant animals, a few sided with the sharks themselves, namely Rox, R-O-X, Man-to-Man, who was a... You get it. El Sordo, the swordfish.
El Sordo.
And their whale friend, Moby Lick.
That was my nickname in high school.
I think Moby Lick was... Yeah, he was an orca.
Moby Lick, dude.
Holy shit. The final few episodes introduced the Dino-Vengers, a group of extraterrestrial dinosaurs allied with the street sharks against their own rivals in the Raptor Gang. The drugs these people were on.
Holy
Fucking man.
When Dr. Paradigm wanted to get a sample of the raptor's DNA to improve himself, they trick him by giving him iguana DNA, which transforms him into Dr. Iguanazoid, teaching him to work with the raptors, where they'll reward him by correcting the DNA mistake that they gave him. In the end, Paradigm is captured and imprisoned while the Raptor Gang leaves Earth. The Dino-Vengers later had their own series called Extreme Dinosaurs, where they and the Raptors had different backgrounds.
How does that get a spin-off? The Street Sharks was already essentially a really bad copy, and then somehow a spin-off comes from that series. Basically, it came down to, can we sell these fucking toys? I guarantee you.
So, Extreme Dinosaurs was the Jurassic Park Ninja Turtles ripoff.
Yep.
Plot, why not? The series starred... This is a shorter plot. The series starred a Tyrannosaurus named T-Bone, Triceratops named Spike, a Stegosaurus named Stegs, and a Pteranodon named Bullseye. Bullseye with a Z. Or a Z.
Bullseye.
That were transformed into super warriors by an interdimensional criminal named Argor Zardock. Power Rangers ass shit is this? They rebelled against the alien criminal and battle with Argor's second group of warriors known as the Evil Raptors. Eventually, the Raptors' objective is to cause global warming by increasing the Earth's temperature to suit themselves, not caring that the humans shall suffer from global warming.
The fuck?
The plot is raptors trying to cause global warming.
Oh, fuck.
Holy shit. So anyway, Scroopy, we don't need special Sharks jerseys.
Yeah.
From our friend A Rogue Pineapple. Speaking of sharks, would you rather shoot laser beams from your eye? The timing. He sent a message 9 minutes after Scroopy, so he might have thought of it because of sharks, but I'm not sure. I'll restart. Would you rather shoot laser beams from your eyes, but they're the type of lasers used in LASIK surgery, or have the ability to talk to animals, but only for 10 minutes and only after you've orgasmed?
So I'm like Aquaman just coming in the ocean and he can talk to fucking animals.
At least you can find out what your cat thinks of your form.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd do the talk to animals thing, because that'd be awesome no matter what. Although that's leaning close to, if you want to be efficient with it, you got to start dabbling in illegal shit.
Potentially. Or
maximize
I mean,
your time.
or you make like a theater for your bed in view of the bed.
Jesus Christ.
So that way too, it's just afterwards. So what are the reviews? God, what would the laser beams do with LASIK? I mean, it can fuck up your eyes if you botch it.
Like,
Am I just
absolutely
gonna-
nothing. It's useless.
Yeah.
Am I like? I mean, I guess I could be a really good doctor, right?
Yeah, man,
Or
you can't
just
make eye
blind
contact
people.
with anyone. That sounds awful. Like,
Yeah,
there's
but
only
anybody I
negatives
look at
to that.
the eyes could get great vision out of it.
Or you could destroy their vision.
Yeah, or leave them in like severe pain for the rest of their lives. Like, have you guys looked up? Like, I mean, obviously you haven't looked up, but like the mortality rate for botched LASIK surgeries is terrible. Like, it's crazy. Like, people like end up in like insane pain, and like the only way for them to deal with it is them fucking kill themselves. It's unfortunate. It's wild.
The only way to deal with it is red mittens. It does say though that you could shoot
Fuck off.
lasers, which makes it sound like a choice. So I don't think it's.
So it's
I
not
don't
just
think you're-
Cyclops.
Yes, exactly. You're not just Cyclops, where it's like if you don't have the glasses on, it's just.
Yeah, but you're
destroying
fucking
everything.
shooting useless lasers.
Yeah, I'll take the talking.
I'm talking to animals after I bone, dude.
I mean, it would give you incentive to, explore a bit.
Yeah.
You know.
What?
Hey, Garrett, let's go have sex at the beach. I'm trying to figure out what these dolphins are about.
That's exactly right. Or it's like, oh, let's go on an African safari and then, talk to lions for 10 minutes.
Simba.
Jesus. What a weird question. Is there another one?
There is.
Is that what the girl from the wild thornberries happened to her? Just the gift of gab? Jeez.
Sir, she
Wild
was a
thornberries.
child and it's now weird.
Yeah, it's not weird.
From
now
Bouncing
it's weird.
McBoink.
Now it's weird. Sim was talking about having a theater set up to watch his.
That wasn't me.
Someone,
That was
and
me.
then look over, you're like, "Yo, how'd I do?"
That was not me.
That's what you say. You sound like a theater.
I
me.
didn't fucking say that.
From Bouncy McBoink Boink, in your opinion, what's the most impressive individual stat for a skater or for a goalie?
Thank
And
God.
what's the most impressive team stat? Most impressive stat for a skater.
Heart per 60.
Hip checks per 60. I'm a
I
big
guess he's
NHL
saying
24.
like an existing stat or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was a few years ago when I got really into watching the AIHL because there was no hockey on. I can't remember why. Why was there no hockey? Was a pandemic
Probably a lockout.
canceled or was it a lockout? I can't remember, but I shared this with you two again. We had this one guy in the AIHL who was our fucking hero because he was a point scorer and he had hundreds and hundreds of penalty minutes at the same time. And that is always going to be my favorite one. It was like in an old tweet, and I think it was Tougie was the one who found it. And goddamn, the dude had like good amount of points and like 200 plus penalty minutes at the same time.
I'm going to try to find this season, which would be tough. For anyone who doesn't know, by the way, the AIHL is the Australian Ice Hockey League, who currently have 8 teams. We have the CBR Brave, which are located in the Australian capital of Canberra. The Newcastle North Stars. The Sydney Ice Dogs, who have a just fucking jacked bulldog. That's their logo.
Yep.
The Sydney Bears, the Melbourne Ice, the Melbourne Mustangs, the Perth Thunder, and the Adelaide Adrenaline, which is the most XFL team name I think I've ever seen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh God, but yeah, I have to try to find this if I can, just to see who that player was.
Yeah. I can't
Although
remember.
I might have found him because I did find the all-time leader in penalty minutes. Let me see what this guy's scoring record was. Okay, it might not have been this guy, but there is a guy by the name of David Dunwoody, who is now retired. He was a 5'9", 198-pound defenseman.
Oh my God.
Who finished his career with 269 points in 372 games.
This might be
and
him.
1,652 penalty minutes.
I want to say this is him, honestly, because that's a decent amount of points.
Yeah, he averaged 0.72 points per game and 4.44 penalty minutes a game. So shout out to David Dunwoody. One of 3 players in the history of the AIHL to have over 1,000 penalty minutes, alongside another retired player named Andrew White and an active player to this day, Liam Webster, who plays both center and defense for the Melbourne Ice. So the AIHL. We love looking up random leagues.
Man, what was really funny is when they did the trip this year to Australia, usually like in the previous Global Series games, you know, the NHL team would play a team in another league, like the SHL or whatever. When they went over to Germany, what was it? Who played? It was Philadelphia Flyers played another team. I can't remember what team it was, but it was a team in like it was like the DEL. I was like, when they're going over there, I'm like, so are they going to go play an Australian hockey league team? Because that would be an absolute, like, you think it'd be an absolute like manslaughter between the two teams. But then you look back
they didn't do it.
Yeah,
like normally.
But then you look back.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but then you look back at the Philadelphia series with them over there, and like it was a close game. It was like a relatively close game. People were like surprised.
Yeah, so they have done the Global Series quite a few times now at this stage. It's actually quite the history of the NHL playing games in other countries. And you're right that, you know, sometimes there's the example of in 2018, the NHL had 2 exhibition games in China. The Bruins and Flames went over that year. The year before, you had the Canucks and Kings, who played some games in China. There have been other games, for example, Calgary and San Jose played games in Japan in 1998. Like, there's a pretty big history of stuff like this. But in the past, with the NHL Global Series, including last year, for example, October 3rd, the Predators played SC Bern of the Swiss League, and October 4th, the Sharks played Berlin of the DEL. The problem with that is just the idea of, okay, the different in competition level between the AIHL clubs and then a team in the NLA or a team in the DEL. Don't get me wrong. I think it would have been cool if those games happened to have been against, you know, like, say, the Australian champions or something like that. At the same time, I'm surprised in the first place that the NHL has willingly played games against non-NHL teams. Because what if an injury happens? You know, if the Sharks are playing Berlin and Logan Couture breaks his leg on a bad hit, what happens?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't expect a player to be like, I'm going to fucking run Logan Couture. But you never know. You never know. Or if just something happens in general and the person didn't mean it, but someone gets seriously hurt. I'm a little bit surprised that those have happened. But we do actually have upcoming games this year. Oh God, what was it? In Sweden, coming up next month. Detroit, Ottawa, Toronto, and Minnesota are going over for regular season games next month. So it does still happen. But yeah, to Endo's point, sometimes you get games against, and there's actually quite the history. Literally, if you look up list of international games played by NHL teams, there is an entire Wikipedia article detailing the history of this that dates back, honestly, shockingly, to 1938 is the earliest date that I'm seeing here, where the Red Wings and the Habs went on a tour of the UK with a stop in Paris as well for a trio of games. So there is quite an interesting history there. At least we get to end viewer questions on on somewhat of an intriguing note, instead of, hey, laser eyes or talk to animals after.
Yeah.
So thank you all for the questions, of course. We do have a couple of things to talk about in regards to the league, though. And I just mentioned Detroit, so we might as well start off there. The Red Wings, 5 wins in a row. They're off to the best start in 12 years that they have had, led primarily by, oh, wouldn't you know it, Patrick Kane product, allegedly, Alex DeBrincat, who leads the NHL in points with 12 and goals with 8. He has 2 more goals than anybody else. There's a handful of guys tied at 6. And in terms of points, he is in first with teammate Dylan Larkin in second with 11.
They've been carrying my fantasy, dude.
They've been good. 5-1-0 to start the season. I was asked last night on stream again as to whether or not I thought this was sustainable for them. And I don't want to say no, but at the same time, there's also aspects of that roster that I still don't trust. You know, I still have a hard time buying into a Ben Sherratt, Justin Hall pairing being effective for 82 regular season games and then potentially in the playoffs.
Yeah, Justin Hall's leading the league in plus minus, though, which is hilarious.
+9 on the season so far. So, at the same time, it is nice to finally see Detroit be good again. I'm sure there's a lot of fan bases where it's like, nope, let them continue to be bad for 50 more years, and they wouldn't have an issue with that, and I totally understand. But they have been off to a very, very good start this season, a +15 differential, which is the best in the league right now, even over the Vegas Golden Knights, who are in second on a +14, which, by the way, they did end up breaking the record for best start to a season following a Stanley Cup victory. They are a perfect 6-0. We'll have to have Danny on the show soon to kind of talk about this freaking hot start for the Golden Knights. But yeah, Detroit has been one of the best teams in the league so far, but 6 games, you know, it's been 6 games, but there's promise there for the first time in a while, where obviously there was some rough years in the aftermath of the playoff streak ending and Ken Holland doing his damnedest to try to keep that streak going. Consequences be damned. But Alex DeBrincat's sick, and I'm very happy that he's turned it around, much to the chagrin of Sens fans, some of whom are very unhappy about this. But in general, it's nice to know that the narrative will go from, oh, he was only good because of Patrick Kane, to now people will say, well, he's only good because of Dylan Larkin. So, yeah. Hey,
He's
at least Dylan Larkin will get some credit.
Chicago should have, I mean, he never should have left Chicago in the first place. His comments following the Kyle Beach situation, like that's future captain shit, and Chicago only had Bedard in mind.
You can argue what could have happened because we'll never know in regards to would Chicago have been too good? What would have happened? Who knows? But if you ask me right now, who would I rather have? Say all things remain the same and you still end up with Connor Bedard. It was a 3rd round pick this year, 2024 that is, a 2nd round pick in 2022, which became Paul Ludwinski, and a 7th overall pick in 2022, which became Kevin Korchinski, who is on Chicago's roster right now for Alex DeBrincat. I like Kevin Korchinski a lot. Imagine if you still had, and again, it's a total fantasy scenario, we'll never know, if you had Alex DeBrincat and Connor Bedard being able to work together on Chicago's top line. Fantasy scenario, but my God, would that look pretty damn good right now? Because, yeah, like Sin mentioned, for Alex DeBrincat, it's not just the idea of, oh, he's good on the ice. That guy should have been the captain. We said it when he got traded. We said it before he got traded. We've said it after he got traded. He should have been the captain of that team.
Yeah.
Speaking of captain material, then. Quinn Hughes.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Patra.
There are 3 topics here, in which case I could say Captain Material. Captain Material, what? Let's actually start off with Matt Patra. Captain Material, example number 1. Speaking of good NHL teams, one of 3 teams left undefeated in the league right now, alongside Vegas and Colorado. It's the Boston Bruins.
Bruins!
They're doing a lot of wins right now.
They haven't played anyone yet, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's been the big takeaway. I joked last night. It got a better response on Twitter. I got fucking downvoted to hell in the Bruins subreddit for this joke.
Twitter sucks. Not Twitter.
Saying,
fucking Reddit sucks. Twitter's okay now, I guess.
Saying, Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci and company may have actually been holding this team back. People didn't like that joke, apparently. But it's one of those things where, it's a 5-0 start after losing the absurd amount of talent that they lost this past season. It's crazy. And I do agree that, yes, you look at their schedule so far and who they have played. And we have that full list. It was a 3-1 win over Chicago in the season opener, 3-2 over Nashville, 3-1 over the Sharks, 4-2 over the Kings, and 3-1 over the Ducks. The problem is they play Chicago again on Tuesday, the Ducks again on Thursday. So their first real competition, as people are deeming it, won't be until October 28th when they play Detroit. So I think that's kind of the date that a lot of people are looking towards. I wouldn't necessarily assume that they'll be undefeated until then, because 82-game season, you never know. But yeah, after Detroit, it's Florida, Toronto, Detroit again, Dallas. Like, they start getting into the thick of the schedule as we get closer to November. But against the Anaheim Ducks, future captain.
In the first 2 periods, I'm sorry, that was rough Bruins hockey.
That was rough hockey in general. The first 2 periods of that game sucked. God, I forget who it was. There was a local Bruins reporter who's just like, well, let's see what this 3rd period has in store. We've had some very exciting hockey tonight. Totally tongue-in-cheek, because, the first 2 periods of that game last night absolutely sucked. But the Bruins get a win against a team that they should beat. And they have done that 5 times in a row now. And I am very happy about it. And it helps that out of nowhere, Matt Patra, 19 years old, this guy decides to score 2 goals in like 3 minutes, if that. And helps propel this team to the win. He's not going back to junior. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Keep him on this goddamn team. Matty Calder. It's going to happen. Fuck you, Connor Bedard. You got nothing on Matt Patra.
If there's one thing I was going to make a meme where it was like, call me a reassignment, but not for me.
Patrick Brown, you are a Providence Bruin. It's going to happen. But yeah, very, very happy with the Bruins start to the season. Very, very happy in regards to Matt Patra. Captain Material number 2, people who are not happy. Vancouver Canucks fans. As one Dom Lasician of The Athletic tweeted something that could be viewed as a slight to new Canucks captain Quinn Hughes. He tweeted, "The Suzuki rule. Anytime a fan base is yelling about their favorite player being underrated after like 6 games, that player's PDO is always like 112. So Jay Fresh responded, "Who is it now?" And Dom Lasician said the 2 words that brought on the firestorm: Quinn Hughes. Now, here's the thing. And I again, we'll continue to talk about the stream last night because we mentioned a lot of stuff. But in regards to Quinn Hughes, there's essentially 3 possibilities with this, right? It's either you think Dom Lasician is right and that maybe Quinn Hughes is a little bit overrated, in which case there's no conversation to be had. unless you want to get into the, well, here's why, and get into the pissing battle back and forth. You either think that he's wrong, in which case it's like, okay, he's wrong, or you get into the pissing battle back and forth of, well, here's why you're wrong. Or option 3 is you think he's doing it for attention, in which case, don't give people attention if you think they're saying something for the sake of attention and engagement and interaction. I just don't understand the idea of this person doesn't think that he's kind of right. Like, this player doesn't think that my favorite player is as good as I think he is, so I am angry about it. Why? There's more productive things to be doing. There's better ways to be involved in the fandom of a team, of a sport, than to just be like, nope, I have to defend. And this happens with everything. It's not a hockey thing. The idea of I have to defend this person with my time, with my life. I don't understand it at this point. I think I'm getting too old at this stage. But Sin, you kind of mentioned it when we were talking before recording. And it's that idea of, and I kind of forget how you phrased it, in regards to analytics.
Oh yeah, I just said people love analytics until it goes against what they believe or what they want to hear. People love analytics until it tells them something they don't want to hear.
And even then, there are so many different models that are out there.
Yeah, and I think it's tough for defense right now, especially because when you look at least in a certain model, again, there's variations. EV defense has a lot also to do with, you clearing the zone, puck moving. So that's why I think Fox is extremely overrated, because he's a great puck mover. And everyone looks at that, combines it with the analytics that says EV defense, because he's able to, when he, helps clear the zone and shit like that, and that boosts it up. But he's, questionable in a lot of ways in his own end about positioning and the way he uses his stick at times when he chooses to attack rather than gapping. So I think for defense, it's such a complicated thing. And we see that with just how the Norris gets voted on. It's very, very hard to be fully accurate with it from an analytics standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of just the way things go right now. It's like it's still the argument that was there 5 years ago when analytics continued to become even more prevalent. It's just the idea of, well, not those analytics, or what about the eye test? What about this?
Yeah.
Quinn Hughes is a damn good player.
Mm-hmm.
If someone doesn't think he's top 3, top 5, top 10, top 20, what difference does it make? It's an opinion. All I know is that I could say if I'm a Canucks fan, I am very happy that I have Quinn Hughes on my team. I am very happy that he is the captain of my team. The end. And I hope to God, no, actually not the end. And I hope to God management does not waste him, because that's a player that you don't want to waste. That is a player that you can properly build around to try and make something happen. In regards to the whole analytical talk too, there was also the launch today. And hopefully this can continue to lead towards analytics and its impact on the sport and conversation. It can lead to things being a little bit more understood and fleshed out, because the NHL, finally, because this has been in the works for a bit, not the first time I'd heard about it. Some people might not have heard about it at all prior to today, but it is here. They launched NHL Edge, which you can find at edge.nhl.com, which is essentially their own sort of in-house analytical look, in affiliation, I believe, with SAP. And the gist of this is you get some more in-depth stats at the NHL level, different tracking options. For example, right on their homepage, if you scroll down for the start of this season, it'll show you who the top 10 guys are in skating speed. That have hit that have the highest max speed in the league so far this season. In which case, fun fact, it's Winnipeg Jets forward Rasmus Kupari, who topped out at 23.95 miles per hour at his highest speed. It also tracks, in regards to speed, who has the most bursts, so effort, essentially clocked in at over 22 miles an hour, and also at over 20 miles per hour. So essentially, you could use a tool like this to say who's the fastest, who has the best acceleration, who's the most consistent in terms of having that high-end speed. You also have similar numbers for this when it comes to shot speed, shot location, zone time, where a player often finds themselves. Obviously, for shot speed, that's one that people are always intrigued in. And fun fact, right now, the skater with the highest clocked shot speed so far is Philadelphia's Travis Sanheim, who had a shot registered at 101.49 miles an hour, one of just 4 shots on the season so far registered at over 100 miles an hour, alongside Victor Hedman, Jan Rutta, and Nick Hague. And again, it has the options. You can sort it by the max speed, who has the most shots over 100 miles an hour, who has the most consistent shots at over 90 miles an hour. So not only do you get those who have hit the top, you get those who have the consistency on top of that. With the goalies, you have shot locations being tracked. High danger, mid-range, long range, and you can also sort it by how many shots against, how many saves, their save percentages on those type of shots, the goals for that they've given up, games with save percentages over 900. There's a lot of useful information here for a variety of different reasons to expand upon what's already out there from the analytical perspective, but as well in regards to video games. Because the second this site was announced to have gone live, my Twitter blew the fuck up.
Yep.
I woke up with so many goddamn notifications saying, oh my God, hey, are you excited the roster edit? Literally the last notification I have here. Shout out to @Rippo_Dippo. NHL Edge probably got Tougie24 itching the roster edit. And you're right, but you're wrong at the same time. My hope is, and I believe this is the intention, but again, it comes down to execution in the future. Resources like this are going to likely be used in the EA NHL franchise in the future. At least I believe that to be the case based off of what I've heard. It's not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination, but I do know it's something that's been discussed because, of course, it is. There isn't a single sports video game out there that is not looking at the analytical side of things and like, okay, how can we implement this into the game? Madden, FIFA, they've already done it. Heavily, might I add, for the FIFA side of things, too. They have so much tracking in their games that you can't consume all of the information if you're playing online because you don't have enough time during essentially intermission, halftime, post-game before you load into a new game. There's so much information that you can really only utilize it if you're doing like a franchise mode type of thing. There's no doubt that something like this should lead to attributes in a game like NHL 24 being more accurate. This should lead to players having proper skating speeds, proper shot powers, stuff like that. But at the same time, that will also require them to do a complete overhaul of their system, which is why I am not holding my breath at all that we will see this used when other analytics that are already out there haven't essentially been used at this stage, or even basic level stats that you can find on NHL.com, Hockey Reference, whatever, that tracks hits and block shots. Their current system, we've talked about it a million times, is outdated. It is not good enough. It results in very generic player ratings, players feeling the same. To utilize this information properly that NHL Edge provides would require them to completely change the way that attributes work, the calculation of an overall system, potentially ditching an overall system entirely.
I don't mind the overall system, but it should work much differently, and it should work more in accordance to what the player's role is, and roles would need an overhaul too. I mean, why not have, 70, 75 overall guys on the fourth line just, to get the ratings right? Because right now they're boosting up these stats that they may consider inconsequential, but they are very consequential. Here's an example. If you play Be a Pro, And if you're playing the games, or even if you play franchise mode, but mostly be a pro because it's all mostly AI besides your guy, the leading hits in the league is my player, Trevor Zegras, and Troy Terry, who all play on my line. We all three of us are the top 3 in hits in the NHL. Because the gameplay is different from the sim, and they have a certain hit rating, and probably with sliders too. But also, if you look at what they, their stats and stuff like that, I always bring it back to this Johnny Gaudreau having the same hitting stat as Alexander Ovechkin. And all these things, it's just generic stuff to boost up their overall and stuff. So they don't get yelled at for certain players being lower overall or whatever, but
that's the big issue, right? Is the idea of you're not utilizing the rating scale properly at this stage.
Yep.
The low-end fringe NHLers are rated too highly. So as a result, you are having to further boost up the star players to create that separation when that's really not necessary.
Yeah.
There is no reason, and I'll throw them under the bus because I'm looking at the Oilers roster in the video game right now. There is no reason for Sharks legend Lane Peterson to be a 75. He could easily be a 70. And then all of a sudden, you don't need to have Connor McDavid as a 97 overall with 95 defensive awareness, 83 body checking, etc. You could have those numbers be a little bit lower, less artificially boosted, less realistic, and he'll still maintain a super high rating. I've talked about it a lot because we're going back and playing through the old games. The NHL, right now, I've gone from NHL 11 to NHL 14 is what we're on stream right now. And at the time, the rating scale was different. And I've talked about this in videos. You could have a 80 overall tough guy, essentially an elite tough guy, an elite enforcer, who would have 65s, 70s for passing and for shooting. But because it's like, okay, he's a tough guy. Important stats for tough guys are good. He has a higher rating. I don't get why we ever got away from that system. And my hope is that NHL Edge, the resource that it is, the information that it provides, not only further opens other avenues for more in-depth analytics, just in a general sense for the sport, but that it opens the door for the video game to be a better representation of the game itself and for what it should be. And that kind of goes in line with NHL 24 in general and the update that is coming out tomorrow that we learned about today and the information that came out there and talking about wanting this game to be better. We've talked about this in the past, the idea that, okay, tomorrow's update, hybrid controls are back, different goalie controls are back, the tether system is now a toggle, essentially, whether or not you want it on or off. The problem with that is, again, they never should have had to have gone back in the first place to re-add control schemes and to change things in regards to the game. That should have just been there in the first place. Mm-hmm. And that's my concern in regards to, what the rosters could be in the future is decisions like this, like with the control schemes, force them to take time fixing it instead of having it already be there. And now this update could have been fixing hip checks, fixing matchmaking and other things, getting franchise mode into a 5 out of 10 level. Because right now it's at about a 2 at best. Yeah. That's my concern. A resource like NHL Edge has so much goddamn potential to be utilized in such a great way. But whether it be just because of lack of foresight like this, the resources, the time, the pressures of the schedule that they're under, whatever, I just don't know if we're going to see it properly implemented. And don't get me wrong, in relation to NHL 24, yeah, hybrid controls were a must because the fact is some people couldn't play the goddamn game anymore. Just due to physical capability. Some people literally need those control schemes to be in the game to be able to actually play it. The goalie controls, again, should have been optional in the first place. They are making different changes as well to the way goalies react when under fatigue. They bumped up the stick lift a little bit in this upcoming patch. Stick lift targeting has been updated to target a lower location on the opposing player's stick, which reduces the chance of taking a penalty. So the stick lift should be better.
Yeah.
Which is good. They fixed a user goalie spinning issue, which was an issue in the beta. Alongside some other things, like menu stuff for World of Chell. Creation Zone, they fixed the scrolling speed for contracts. It's not going to be super slow anymore. They also fixed creative defensemen being listed with forward potentials and stuff like that, so that's fun. But we're still waiting for hip checks and other things like that.
Yep.
I can't talk about a service like NHL Edge and how it could be utilized in a video game sense without talking about the realities of what the video game is right now. And I just can't be confident with their current systems that it's going to be utilized properly anytime soon. Unfortunately, I just genuinely do not have the confidence or belief that it's going to be utilized properly. And it's going to take somebody or a small group of people in a dedicated position to fix this shit. It can't just be, okay, well, this guy works on franchise, be a pro, and also touches up some stuff with the rock. They need a dedicated person or a group of people to be able to put the proper amount of focus, time, effort, and care into this subject, or it's never going to be where it needs to be. That is just a fact.
Yeah.
It does not matter if it is a creator like myself, snipe and score tactics. It does not matter if they outright hire a JFresh or somebody in the analytics community to directly provide, okay, here it is. You are our resource now for what this is. There needs to be a drastic change. It cannot be the same old system that they've had for God knows how long now, because we've seen over and over again, the system does not work.
Yeah, it's not. There's nothing to say other than that. I will say, like I said before, their downfall was them grabbing the UFC license and them splitting the team up in two. That's basically the entirety of it. That's where they fucked up. That's where now, 10 years down the line, people are still saying that the game is nowhere where it used to be. And you have people going on Twitter being like, wow, it took 3 weeks to add controls to the game. And I'm like, do you remember when the IIHF put the sanctions against Russia and Belarus? And by response, EA had to remove Russia and Belarus from the game?
Yeah.
And do you remember what happened for a good solid week after they removed Russia and Belarus from the game?
Somewhat. I feel like I tried to put it out of my memory.
So anytime you would go to a Russian or Belarusian player, you would crash your game immediately. Whenever you load up their stats or anything, the game would crash. Because what they did is they pulled Russia and Belarus out of the pool entirely. Mm-hmm. And so when you're coding a game, your game basically call to action is like, okay, I'm gonna look at this and load up this thing over here. If this thing over here doesn't work, it can be catastrophic for literally everything in the game itself. That's why when you look at other games, like for example, when we're playing emulated versions of NHL on stream using the emulator that we use, RPC S3, there is an actual change log of everything that's being loaded while you play in the background on the console. And we're playing Legacy Edition or whatever, looking at stuff like that. You can see what codes are being used, and a lot of the codes references are still saying like NHL 11, 12, 13 in the code itself. So for people to complain about the controls being out of the game, I completely understand that. And I understand why people are upset. But at the same time, it's like a piece of Jenga. You're not going to, if you grab a piece and pull it from the bottom directly, shit's going to fall apart. You have to basically rebuild the entire control system in a way to put stuff back into the game. I get people are upset, but there's a reason why it took basically a month, really, because they said initially in an update, like right after the tech test, that, hey, we're going to be adding this into the game. Because not only do you have to make sure the controls are in the game, you got to make sure they work. You got to make sure they actually work accurately. and that there isn't any other bugs happening. For example, the spinning goalie thing that happened in the game right now as we speak.
There's also a bug in Be a Pro where in Total Control where if you're using Total Control to do the between the legs deke, it nothing happens. I've tested this a few different times. There's also something on the forums where I noticed for like a PS4 user, it wasn't working on fixed camera. I'm using zone camera on the Xbox Series X and it's not working. So
yeah,
there's control issues right now, even with the new schemes. I've mentioned it.
Exactly. And like the major content update for, putting in the gameplay changes that with the hip checks and other stuff in there, that got pushed back because putting in the old control system was the main priority of the developers. Clearly, they even said in the update there that they're pushing back all the other updates for an update in the earliest of being not next week, but the earliest of like early November. So that could be November 1st, 2nd, 3rd. It could be like the 8th of all things too.
It's one of those things where, I'll never not root for NHL 24 to be better because it's the only hockey game that's out there from a modern perspective. Just to, again, kind of bring it all together. There are great resources out there. It's just, I'm uncertain about the current infrastructure and current setup of things that, its current status probably isn't going to allow something like this to be used properly, but I hope that ends up being the case. Obviously, I'm going to push for the idea of like, hey, can we have player stats actually be representative of these players as opposed to, well, this guy's good, so give him good stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like to get away from that if we could.
Yeah.
And, again, it's one of those things. Sin, you mentioning frickin' Trevor Zegras and Troy Terry leading the league in hits in your Be a Pro alongside you. It's just like, you want that differentiation of Trevor Zegras feels like a finesse, skill-first player. But then on the same team, because the Ducks have not Eric Bolton now. They have Ross Johnston now. And if you're on the ice with Ross Johnston, you want to see that guy run around and be a bully on the ice, which is his job. Like, you want to see him get into fights. Say you take a hit. You're on the ice with Ross Johnston. Your guy takes a rough hit. You want to see Ross Johnston skate over and defend you. At the same time, that feels as likely as Zegras or Troy Terry going and defending you at the moment.
Yeah, Troy Terry has 100 penalty minutes because he fights in the game. He has a fighting rating. I don't know what it is, but if most of the time he's the only one on the ice, so I get crushed or Zegras gets crushed, or Zegras crushes someone wants to step up, but Zegras has a never fighting. Troy Terry maybe has rarely, but he's the only one out there to step up. He always fills in the place. So yeah, Troy Terry has 10 plus fights in that. Like that's the other thing. It's that their gameplay, the sliders are not representative of hockey, and you can no longer choose between real-time sim, competitive, or arcade anymore. I noticed that's gone. That's not an option in Be a Pro. I don't know if it's an option anywhere else.
But I mentioned that. It's just NHL 24 and it's stupid.
Yeah.
It is stupid.
I miss that because now I have to go in depth with the sliders and fuck around a lot. Whereas last year I was just, you know what, my guy has 95 speed now. Why am I struggling to blow by Eric Goodbranson? Because it's set to real sim or something. And then if I set it to competitive, all of a sudden my skating stats fucking matter. Yeah. And then Eric Goodbranson can't keep up with me. But now I have to go bit by bit and figure it out. But also, I'm going to say it for the millionth time, there needs to be separate tuner sets for separate game modes. Like, we can't have HUT dictating fucking everything. And that's what it is right now. Everything is tuned for HUT. Maybe a little bit for Eashel, but it's mostly tuned for HUT.
Yeah. I can't disagree with that. For the record, I had to look it up. Troy Terry in the most recent NHL 24 roster update has his fighting, of course, which you have the option of never, rarely, sometimes, and often. It is currently set to rarely. His fighting skill is currently set. Any guesses of Troy Terry's fighting skill in
I'm going to say
NHL
it's at
24.
80.
Endo, do you have a guess?
No, I don't. I'm not familiar with Troy Terry, unfortunately.
His fighting skill is set to a 70.
Hmm.
Troy Terry has one career fight. In which
you know why he's at rarely? Because he's a two-way. EA does not fucking figure out what, like, every time you get deep in a franchise mode, because I always check fights and hits, I consider those the fun stats when I'm doing the stat wrap up. Every time you get deep into it, the top leaders in fighting, they're all two-way forwards and two-way defensemen. Because I feel like because the way EA randomizes the AI generated players, it's anywhere in the spectrum. Like, you're not going to see a sniper come in with often fighting, but if they're a two-way, EA doesn't know what the fuck to do. So I think they just have it. Okay, they can be anywhere. So you end up with these like two-way defensemen and two-way forwards who might be in the high 80s and 90s, and they're fighting 20 plus times a year because EA doesn't know what to do with a two-way and setting their fighting.
For the record, that lone fight of Troy Terry's was against Jay Beagle in April of 2022.
Oof.
Hockeyfights.com allows its users to vote on the result, either win, lose, or draw, or, who won, or was it a draw? 91% said Jay Beagle won that fight. But Troy Terry has more fights than Arbor Jackeye does in Your Be a Pro, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Because he's the only one who isn't set to never, so I guess he'll just always step up, even though it's set to rarely.
Maybe someday it'll be good, everybody. With that, the final thing to mention as we wind down the first show of the week is this. Travis Dermott. And you're going to know why that name's out there right now. He became the first player to use Pride tape after the supposed ban, which says a lot about him for a variety of different reasons, but especially because he is in that very precarious position of not being a star player in the NHL. Someone like Travis Dermott, who is on a two-way contract, could easily be sent to the AHL. His deal could be up, and then bye-bye. Have fun learning Russian. You're off to the KHL. A very bold and brave thing to do at this stage. And right now, there is no word about whether or not there'll be repercussions from the NHL side of things.
They're reviewing it, they said.
The
NHL said that they're reviewing it, the situation.
Right. The egg that they already have on their face is hilarious. For all the reasons that we've talked about. And now they're staring down the barrel of, well, if we do something about this, the negative press is going to be fucking insane, except from the fucking same losers who are like, yeah, I went and bought a Provorov jersey, yeah. And if that's who you're going to be appealing to at this stage, well, then it's no wonder why you're trying to avoid NFL competition, because you know your league is fucking second rate. Gonna throw that out there. Travis Dermott, good on you. And hopefully the NHL and its video game can get its fucking shit together collectively, because both need to, as we've learned. But he was the first, but Travis Dermott will not be the last, I would imagine. And I don't feel it sucks because I feel like this is a topic that deserves 20 minutes worth of time, but at the same time, we've had the conversation to death at this point over just how dumb the NHL is over this entire thing.
And they're so dumb for doing this thing. Like, they're so fucked right now, because if they don't punish him, it looks exactly as it is, a completely empty threat pandering to homophobes and pandering to 5 or 6 dudes in the NHL who didn't want to wear Pride jerseys. They already look like that. And then if they do fine him, then they have a whole other PR nightmare in their hands. And that was supposedly what they're trying to avoid by mass canceling the special events, even though there was only this issue with one of them. They've once again put themselves in a nightmarish PR position, and I have zero sympathy for them.
Yeah, well, it only took 5 or 6 players for them to add this rule in. So by that math, it'll take 5 or 6 players fighting against this for them to abolish that rule, given their fucking logic with the NHL. So, there's an article that just came out right now from the Hockey News from Nick Barden saying that Morgan Rielly has also given support towards Travis Dermott because they're former teammates in Toronto. And so saying, if you look back at pictures, he's always done that. Whenever you're asked not to do something and you do it anyway, it takes a little bit of courage, and I support him. I think it's a good move by him. Props to Travis Dermott. I mean, a lot of people are saying, he's not on a contract. He's on a contract year this year. He's making less than $1 million. It's a big move for a guy who really has everything to lose. He could get blacklisted by the league for doing stuff like this. Like I really highly doubt it, because that'd be even more questionable things and more mismanagement, not just by the teams, but just by the league in general. I think, like Tougie said, they definitely put themselves in a weird, stupid corner in the sense of, banning pride tape. You could have done something simple as saying, you teams cannot force players to use pride tape, but that's stupid because there's a rule already in there that says teams are permitted to use any color of tape that they want on their stick, except for goalies. The goalies cannot use black tape on the end of their stick, like the butt end, because apparently it looks too much like a puck and it could confuse a referee or linesman or whatever the fuck.
Pride tape for everybody. That's the solution. Yes. With that, gentlemen, we will wind things down for the first show of the week. Mr. For the Win, what do you have going on? I highly doubt there are too many massive changes from just a few days ago.
No, I'm getting ready to start a new franchise mode. Not anytime. I'm just trying to get it all set up for that, so that I don't have too much time between a series. It's going to be a new member series. So I'll have all the paying channel members will be prospects into the game. Hopefully they fix that bug where you couldn't put prospects to appear in the third draft year. That was a thing last year. I'll have to ask Snipe. He'll probably know, and he's going to be the one to do my rosters anyway. But yeah, I'll have all channel members appearing in the first 2 or 3 draft years as prospects, and I always love to do that. It's a lot of fun keeping track of all them, and it's cool to give back to the community in that kind of sense. And there's so bunch of players missing, as there always is. So let's fill it in with some of the channel members who like to support my series, and still kicking with the Be a Pro stuff as well. I'm having a blast. First season almost over.
I've told you this. I feel like that's an idea I have to steal at some point. Although, in fairness, I did do that a couple of years ago for a Patreon exclusive series, and it was a hell of a lot of fun to see what players would develop. The thing is, it'd be a hell of a lot more fun if we could edit people during a franchise mode. Be a lot more fun. Let me say, you know what? This guy was the first one to win the Calder. We're going to bump up his potential by an extra 1 or something like that. Like, imagine the creativity you could have. Now I'm sad. Endo, Endurance M. What do you have going on?
Not much.
Cool.
Still working on a video.
That...
Okay, thanks. I barely said anything in this episode. I've got nothing going on except for working on that video. It's supposed to be out Wednesday. Besides that, Be a Pro stream tomorrow, I guess, because the update's coming out, and I guess gonna play some goal. Yeah, you're gonna be live at like 12:30, 1 o'clock tomorrow, streaming some Be a Pro. So there you go.
You cannot say you barely said anything when you told us the entire history of Red Mittens.
And then I was silent because y'all kept talking over me for the entirety of the episode. You can look back at the waveform. There's maybe 3 blips over the past hour and a half of me speaking. That's it.
I will put that to the test with the screenshot of this video for the podcast side of things on the podcast channel. With that, everybody, you know the deal. Tougie24 everywhere. Catch Endo on his stream, or you can talk to him and he can talk to you uninterrupted. And we'll see all of you later on this week. It's known as the episode where Endo got big mad. Big mad. Big mad.
Fuck you.